Hi Chris, how are you?
Good morning, Rod. I'm well. Here we are, episode 158. It's the second of the second, 2025. Lots of twos in the date today, and
Many twos.
And the weather is pretty nice actually. It's a beautiful morning. I'm quite looking forward to post this. I've got to go watch one of my children play football, and it's a beautiful sunny morning. So hopefully it's going to look pretty cool.
I hope so. It's definitely chilly. I'd agree with that. Even us over here a bit further to the west are finding it chilly. There are a lot of twos. We let our 158th, where are we? 156, I think, was our 3-year anniversary. So we've missed our 3-year anniversary by 2 shows.
In typical bloke fashion, we're completely oblivious to anniversaries.
Oh, stereotyping there, but you're probably right about that.
Yeah, it's very stereotyping, but I've always been rubbish at that kind of thing, as my wife, I'm sure, will attest.
Yeah, I think the partners, whoever they are throughout the world, are probably thinking the other one does a terrible job of remembering that kind of stuff. But yep, there we go. Such is the way.
And shall we dive straight into some follow-up then?
Let's do it. And it's going to be a slightly oddly set up show, I think. Our main show is going to be a bit freewheeling, more freewheeling than usual, I think, to talk about the subjects we've got. But yeah, let's do some follow-up. So the first one is Dell ending its hybrid work policy. So this is something we've talked about a lot in the past. We can see work from home becoming less of a priority in the UK, but definitely in America, since we're going to end up talking about Trump a lot today, I think. But Dell have absolutely ended their hybrid work policy. As of within a week, if you live within a certain radius of a Dell office, they expect you in the office working 9 to 5.
Yes, that's within an hour. I was reading this article because some company I work for is going through a similar thing at the moment. What I find about this is it's not right. We expect people back in the office, or you've got to be back in the office. I say expect, I think is the wrong word. And we're going to give you time to do it in an orderly fashion. And this is the bit I think I have a problem with. If the company's going to change a policy, okay, I can get behind that. But I think what I find frustrating is that it's kind of tomorrow. Like from tomorrow, you're doing this, whereas it's not from 2 months' time. So you've got time to sort childcare out, pet care, commitments, gyms. Because how many people have maybe signed up to a gym because they don't have to do the hour commute they used to have to do, or whatever it may be. And it's not just people with families; it's people who've got commitments and a life. And I don't understand why we can't make the two work. Why does work's hard as it is? Why do we have to make it harder? And I think we've demonstrated for 5 years that actually working from home can work. And I'm not a complete remote person. I think there is a balance to be had where you do have, physical face-to-face contact, but schedule your week accordingly. So you have 2-3 days in the office, 2-3 days at home. And when you're at home, you're doing the admin stuff, the stuff where you want to get your head down and concentrate. And when you're in the office, you're doing your meetings, your face-to-faces, whatever that may be. So I find this whole thing incredibly frustrating. And like I say, it's maybe fine if you want to make the change, but be respectful and give people time. And companies just aren't doing that. And I think that's bad, especially when companies go, people are our most important asset. And it's like, well, why don't you treat them with some respect?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And it just feels a chilling effect on the whole. I mean, since COVID, we've seen this, that organizations have large buildings. They cost a lot to rent, to heat, to light. They expect that work happens there. And the shift from in COVID times to us working from home and being more kind might be the right word, but just being more in tune with what your employees want. And yeah, doing the gym or hanging the washing out or being there for the delivery are things people used to have to take a day off to do. Maybe it's not so much hanging the washing out, but certainly a delivery or somebody coming, the gas person coming to check your boiler or something like that. You have to take a day off for that. And you could actually continue to work from home while these things were going on. And that made you more productive as an employee. So that sort of balance between we have a responsibility for our employees. We want to look after them to the best of our ability versus get in here and just work because that's the only possible place that you can be productive. It is straying the wrong way for me at the moment. And I think this is in line with other policies we're seeing in America. And of course, things from America always bleed to the UK. Well, I hope in this case some of these things don't, particularly in the diversity stuff that we talked about last week. But yeah, I think this is a bad move on Dell's part. Obviously, if you work on the production line and you're getting computers out, you got to be in the office. But there's probably an awful lot of Dell's work, remote support, all the rest of it. Customer support could be done from the office and without any sort of interruption to their workflow.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I say, I think hybrid is the right balance for me. And I think for a lot of people, and I've certainly had that feedback from people in my team at work and other teams. So I just find this, one of the really good things that COVID did bring around. Obviously, it brought a lot of very horrible things, but the one good positive was this ability that you don't have to be in the office to be working, and there could be, you could have a very big, job and still be present with your family. And I don't understand why that can't happen. I don't think the two need to be mutually exclusive.
It's our horrible, touchy-feely way of thinking, obviously, Chris.
It's just old school, isn't it? And there was a lot of talk here in the UK just 2 weeks ago. There was a panorama show on the BBC. Lord Rose, who here in the UK used to run our Marks and Spencer's chain and then latterly Asda as their chairman, believes we've regressed like 20 years in 4 years in our productivity. It's like, but also the tech's moved on. Like 20 years ago, you couldn't really work from home if you were doing computer-based work. You had to be in the office on your desktop, connected to your mainframe or whatever it may have been. You can do it from home. Now, I appreciate some employees will be, taking advantage of the situation, but that's where you monitor their output. If they're not performing what you need them to perform, that's when you have a word. And you have that FaceTime, a couple of days a week or whatever that may be. But you should be trusting people. People are adults. You should trust them to do their job. And if they're not doing it, you'll see it on the productivity.
Which you'd have seen if they were in the office anyway. Just so you're in the office is no marker of your output. And I think you and I are probably fairly similar managers in the sense that I don't care where you are as long as you get it done. That's all I care about.
I had this exact conversation with my team this week. Chris, I need to work from here that day and that day. And I said, well, in the last 5 years, have I ever told you where you need to be? No. So carry on doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Look at us being progressive and cool. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Something I'm not going to pat on the back, however, is Apple potentially going back onto Twitter /X. So Apple stopped advertising on X/Twitter following some adverts of theirs appearing alongside some very right-wing statements, fascist statements. That's why they pulled it, as did a number of other companies. I think this was the thing that made a lot of people leave Twitter at this point, but apparently they're thinking of walking back here, and I can't think that's a good move.
The fact that they're even thinking about this, but obviously in light of Trump being in, Elon being Trump's best buddy, it feels like that £1 million that Tim Apple donated this is just a further extension of greasing the wheels of the current administration, which it does not sit right with me.
No, it doesn't sit right with me. And there's a breaking story just before we came on the podcast, actually, that there's been a terrible plane crash in America where a military helicopter got in the way of a landing plane in Washington, D.C. And apparently the NTSB, which is the Safety Investigation National Transport and Safety Bureau, I think what it stands for, are only going to give updates to the media via Twitter. It's been forced on them, presumably, by Elon. Now, this feels illegal and grimy to me, that you're using the corporate agency that is Twitter to force governmental departments to only report it that way.
That's not right, is it? Like, surely you've got to use a service that's not open-ended. Obviously email does have some locking, but you can pretty much do whatever you want with email. You can use any email address. You can use any client. It's not linked to any one giant corporation. This does not feel right.
I mean, you're a national agency. Post on your website and the journalists will come.
Yeah, agreed. This doesn't feel right at all. But maybe this is the second coming of X/Twitter, in that Trump's going to rebuild Twitter for Elon after Elon messed it up.
But to make a private agency the mouthpiece of the government, and that particular private agency, it just blows my mind.
I completely agree with you on this. I don't know I really don't know what to say. This is just stupid. I hadn't seen this before we recorded. So. No,
but this is what I mean. I saw it literally as we were just pressing record on our various things as this came up.
But how idiotic is that? I'm sorry. I can't agree with that.
No, I 100% agree with you. Another thing that's idiotic is that Meta agreeing to pay its $25 million to settle a Trump suspension suit. So I don't think we talked about this last week. I'm suddenly having a flashback that we did, but I don't think we did. No. This was when Facebook booted Trump's accounts off of Meta in the same way that happened with X, actually, for some of his statements, following the July 6th events that occurred in the Capitol, Washington again. Anyway, Zuckerberg is trying to get past this by just chucking him $25 million. So it'll go away, even though Facebook would probably have won the suit.
It's just all awful, isn't it? I'm sorry. It's just, there's not one good thing coming out of any of this. It's all just smells of political and corporate corruption.
It is, and keeping the theme going, as we're on a groove of speaking of terrible things. Apparently, the White House has asked a bunch of people to quit. So this is back to Elon again. White House Office of Personnel, as part of Trump's administration plan to drastically reduce the size of the federal government. An email went out to federal workers on Tuesday explaining the offer, which the OPM was copied to its website along with this. During the first week of his administration, President Trump issued a number of directives concerning the federal workforce. Among these directives, the president required those employees to return to in-person work or get out. So exactly what we're seeing with Dell.
The whole thing is ridiculous. I just don't like it at all. And it does feel like and I've seen companies in the UK do this, we're just ending up in a dictatorship. It's just, I don't know, I really don't understand it, but it does seem to be the put up or shut up kind of thing. You know, it's pick one road or the other. I can't condone it.
I can't condone either route. We're going to do one more grim story, and then we've got a slightly better one. So, slightly better.
I did put all the grim ones together because I thought let's do the rant and then break and move on.
Let's get the grim out of the way. So not only have we got issues with the US government saying DEI is responsible for plane crashes and things like that, we've also got Jeff Bezos and the whole Amazon shtick deleting all of its LGBTQ plus rights and equity for black people from all Amazon corporate policies.
Yeah, this just feels Meta all over again, just towing the current line from the dictatorship. It's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's extremely awful. And, on this article, which I'm not going to call out particularly, when Elon did what he did on the stage at the inauguration, I think it all comes back to that. What we're seeing is America walking back from anything progressive.
Yeah.
And I feel very sorry for, women, people of colour, people of any, choice around gender, sexuality, any of that kind of stuff, who are caught in this mill of right-wing fundamentalist Christian beliefs that, frankly, I don't even believe that Trump or Elon Musk particularly believe in. It's a grift.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think on this, I really can't understand it that we've gone backwards so quickly. And is it just going to be for 4 years? What happens when the next president comes along? Is this going to continue?
The thing is, if they change the law to allow a third or a fourth or a fifth term, maybe it'll never go away.
Ends up cryogenically frozen.
It's a terrible state of affairs, and frankly, we might talk about it immediately. I cancelled my Netflix subscription this week. I'm thinking about tossing Amazon out the window as well, because not just on this. There's lots of reasons not to like Amazon. I mean, this is just the latest thing. This could be the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the way they treat their workers, the way they treat their suppliers, the way they don't vet their products properly. There's lots and lots of reasons to fall out with Amazon. But like I say, it's straw that broke the camel's back potentially.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes, isn't it? The little things add up, and then boom. They've gone a step too far.
I think they've gone a step too far. This is an Elon adjacent story, I guess.
Yeah, should we get back to tech? So 18.3 came out last week, which is 18.3 on all the things, including your HomePod and your Macs and your all that cycle of patches came out, which is good. And there's literally nothing in it that anybody would really notice, I don't believe. Well, maybe the news summaries getting turned off. I was going to say fixed, but it's just turned off.
It is turned off. I meant to put it in the show notes actually. I use Sleep Plus Plus to track my sleep. Apple Intelligence summarized that as you've been sleeping well during the day.
Wow. Busy day in the office, was it, Rod? If you were in the office, you wouldn't have been. Your watch wouldn't have thought you were asleep.
Well, as it happens, I was in the office, so I'd been up walking around. I'd cycled into work. I'd done a workout, but Apple Intelligence saw this as me sleeping well during the day.
Wow, okay, interesting. But anyway, 18.3 is out, and we've got some more satellite connectivity by the looks of it to get more in bed with Elon. Brilliant.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of stories about it. This one in particular is that some iPhone customers will get SpaceX connection via their T-Mobile. I presume it's quite a small number of iPhones to begin with, just while they test whether this works or not. So I guess if you're living in a remote part of America, this is probably, and are a T-Mobile customer, this is quite a useful thing.
Yeah, it does feel. I'm a bit mixed, as I think we discussed on satellite connectivity, because we're just ending up with a world, an outer world full of satellites, aren't we? It does make sense. Like, it does feel like we are going to have connectivity everywhere at some point. Obviously, if you're outside, so it does feel good in one respect, especially for emergencies and so on. But there's a lot of satellites, and this is just fueling Elon even more, which is obviously a little concerning.
Yeah. It is a worry for sure. We're going to talk about satellites and phones in the main show because it's not strictly speaking follow-up as well. So was there anything else in follow-up, or have we covered it? We need to talk about your tail scale and things like that at some point.
Yeah, I'm still just playing with it, but yeah, I've been doing a little bit of home networking stuff since I bought a Mac Mini. So it's probably something for another day once I've got worked out what exactly I'm doing and what I'm using frequently.
Cool. Okay, well, let's go and do some news. So first story, and this is quite a cool one, I think. If you're an Android user, then Android now has a Linux terminal built into it, or certainly from Android 16 it will have a Linux terminal built into it. So Bash or Z Shell or something like that, if you're familiar with these kinds of things. I love me a bit of terminal action. But apparently soon you're going to be able to run graphical apps via the terminal, not just SSH and top and things like that. So somebody, of course, has got Doom running via the terminal on Android 16, and I think this is really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's always a meme, isn't it? What can you get Doom to run on? And some of the stuff they've been doing with Android, obviously, where I think it's called Dex, where you can dock your phone, with a USB-C cable, have it on your monitor, have a keyboard and mouse. I'd love a future like that where my phone is my computer and I'm not lugging, an iPad or a laptop around. So this does look quite good, and it just feels like mobiles really are eclipsing everything, aren't they? With the power they've got in your pocket, it's ridiculous.
But this is the thing. The secret is your phone always was a computer. We're certainly as soon as we had iPhone and decent Android phones, they were always computers. So let us use them as computers. That's what you and I have been asking for a long time. Your iPad would be a significantly better device if you could use bits of Mac on it.
100%.
I could consider using an iPad for a lot of what I did if they'd let me run the bits of Mac on it. I think they'd increase sales from the tech aware, yes, but a switch to flick to say let me do this would cost Apple nothing. So it's good to see that Google at least are allowing this with an Android.
Yeah, I think it's good, and it would be nice to see Apple obviously allow a little bit more capability on your mobile device when docked, when constant power, etc. And let me do more rather than ring fence it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that's not looking good for Elon is Tesla at the moment. Tesla's 2024 results are out and they're terrible. So this sort of follows the quarter stocks were down, but actually the whole year stocks were down. Tesla saw a 6% drop in automotive revenues, down to $77 billion, still quite a lot of money. Energy generation and storage increased by 67%. So basically what this comes down to is people aren't buying his cars anymore.
Yeah, which I find odd because here in the UK it feels like I'm seeing more and more cars, more Teslas. I find it just a little odd from that perspective, but obviously in other markets, if the sales are dwindling, maybe we're not making up the shortfall here in the UK. And they've obviously got a lot of new models coming out, and the Cybertruck's out. So I'm surprised that they're down as much as they are, but I'm not surprised because obviously a lot of governments are pausing the need to go fully electric, and there's a lot of people looking at electric and still not comfortable that the infrastructure's there and what have you. And I know both of us have electric cars. We've talked about it. I think they are great, but I don't use mine for commuting every day, and I don't travel huge distances. Would I feel differently then? I don't know, but I think the range that the Teslas do, I'm surprised that they're dwindling as much as they are.
I think a lot of this can be linked back to Elon himself, though. The kind of person who's likely to buy an electric vehicle. I can't speak for Americans. I think Americans are quite happy to buy American car companies' cars. Although the biggest selling car in America for many, many years was Toyota Camry, which is a Japanese vehicle. And I know that Volkswagen do well there because of all the Dieselgate stuff and all the rest of it. But General Motors, Chevy, Dodge, all these brands do extremely well in America. They buy their own first, and Tesla is an American company. However, the kind of people that buy electric vehicles are wimpy, left-leaning, liberal types who are more likely to want an electric vehicle that's good for the planet. And if Elon has changed in the last 2 years, I'd say, since he bought Twitter, is sort of when we've really noticed the big change in him. People have viewed driving a Tesla like wearing a MAGA hat, and there's whole strings of people that have got rid of their Teslas because they don't want to give him any more money, and I think he is damaging the reputation of the company. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with the vehicles, although taking out indicator stocks is bloody stupid. I think the problem comes from him, and if you look at some of the forums and things, I follow a YouTube channel of a guy called Richard Simmons, who he's done Tesla videos for years and other electric vehicles. He's an electric vehicle salesman in Southampton, I think. And he posted a video recently going, how can I continue to support this, or should we continue to support this, based on what he's doing, and it caused an awful lot of comment on the website. And that sort of approach can harm a company. If we're seeing it in the UK, and let's face it, most electric vehicles in the UK are bought on leases. It's not private individuals buying them, it's companies buying them, where that risk is sort of devolved from you. You can dip your toe in the water. So I think it's as much to do with Elon as it is the company itself.
I would agree, and I guess it goes back to a conversation we've had before of, can you separate the art from the artist? And I think people are struggling with that 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it's hard to feel too sorry for them. Although, I'll go back, if we go in back 10 years ago, I still think it's a remarkable achievement, to get electric vehicles into the public's hands. And Tesla did that, even though Renault and others were in the market before them.
Agreed. And you can't fault that they haven't jump-started that whole conversion to electric. I wouldn't have probably had an electric Beamer if it wasn't for them. You may not be in an electric Volvo. And they've certainly helped with that and getting the infrastructure out 100%. But it's just a shame it's ended up like this. And maybe it will change over time. Who knows what the future is for Tesla. But it is frustrating, I think, that their figurehead is as controversial as he is.
Yeah. And it's interesting that even in the headline there, 40% of Tesla's profit comes from selling regulatory credits. That's not selling cars.
No, which you'd have thought all of their money would come from their cars, because that's what they are known for.
You're a car company and maybe a little bit of a Powerwall company.
Yep. But no, obviously not.
No. Back to phones briefly, and this in the UK this time. This was a PR spot that Vodafone put out in the week, saying that we will soon have similar connectivity in the UK. So somebody in the middle of Wales used the Vodafone space network to speak to the chief executive of Vodafone using a company called AST Space Mobile. Yet another bunch of satellites kicking around in low Earth orbit. Worked quite well, apparently. A little bit of lag, but they actually did it live. So PR stunt it might be, but they actually managed to do it in the UK too.
Yeah, everywhere's going this way, isn't it? Satellite is becoming the thing. So it's interesting Vodafone are doing it. What we really want, though, is not for the mobile phone companies to do it, but more like I'm going to say a Starlink company that all the phone providers can use, rather than everybody having their own satellites. We need a better way of doing this, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Vodafone have claimed they did this before Elon, because of, I think, that kind of marketing's not necessarily a bad thing. I think in those hard to reach spots it's good, and we've trumpeted before how good it was that Apple had emergency texting if you are out in the middle of nowhere and you have no access. And let's face it, bits of Wales, bits of Scotland, out in the middle of the sea somewhere, these kinds of technologies are potentially life-saving. So I think it's a good thing, and the way they're proposing it is right. It falls back to this if there is no cellular connectivity. It's quite hard to put mobile phone masts in areas of outstanding national beauty or out in the middle of the sea. So, in principle, I'm fine with this.
Agreed. I think you are on the same place.
Yeah. One thing I'm less fine with is the newly discovered chip vulnerabilities in Apple computers. And this feels very like Intel's and AMD's woes from many, many years ago, where they found fundamental problems within the chips that could potentially leak secrets. Yeah,
so I tried to read some of this article. It gets complicated quickly. I think it's fair to say, and very technical. But it is quite interesting. Yeah, all of Apple's chips in recent years, affecting pretty much all their current devices, have got some form of potential vulnerabilities, whilst still being a little hard to exploit. Is there in the hardware of the device? Obviously, I think Apple have acknowledged it from what I remember reading, but they're basically saying, look, there's nothing to believe there's an issue that's an immediate risk here. But did you understand any of the technical stuff on this? Because I must confess I struggled after a point.
It is very technical. The vulnerabilities are called SLAP and FLOP, which are acronyms for something or other. Speculative execution attacks, which are very similar to the Spectre attacks that we saw in Intel and AMD chips in 2018. Kevin Beaumont, who is someone I follow on Mastodon, who is a white hat hacker who does this kind of stuff, used to work for Microsoft, is very big on these various hacks, tried to implement this himself and really struggled. He sort of followed and he understands the technical backgrounds to it all, and even he struggled to do it. I think it's one of those things that's a nominal risk, but you've got to really know what you're doing, or it could even be a theoretical risk, which we often see from, in a very specific set of circumstances you can get these things to do. And what they're saying they can do is potentially leak information from credit cards, sensitive data from Chrome and Safari browsers, and Google Calendar and things like that, iCloud Calendar. So potentially the risk of them is high, but I think the threat of them is currently quite low based on the steps you have to go through in order to get them to work. But vulnerabilities are bad, and I'm glad they're being highlighted, and hopefully Apple have a chance to actually, even in a theoretical way, shut them down.
Yeah, I'm sure they will do something for it because it's such a big estate that it covers that Apple have surely got to do something for it at some point. Because your M1 devices aren't going to go away from active use for a long time from now because Apple are generally very good at supporting older hardware.
Yeah, and as the register says, the risk of these speculative actions, even if discarded, can have observable side effects on shared resources, caches, and buffers. These side effects can be used by malware and rogue users to infer sensitive data. So it's an issue. They need to deal with it. If you say they've acknowledged it, although I didn't see that article acknowledging it.
Oh, it's literally right at the bottom if you scroll to it, because it's a long old article. I think it's like the last line at the bottom. Apple appears not too concerned, and they've obviously got a quote there.
Yeah. Based on our analysis, we do not believe this issue poses an immediate risk to our users, but even a speculative risk needs to be dealt with. So hopefully a future version will patch this, although I seem to remember the Spectre patches were slow down the chip.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I'm trying to remember now. And I think, though, in reality, nobody ever really noticed that once it got patched.
I think Spectre was a big deal, and I still get warnings about it when I install various Linuxes and things. So it hasn't gone away. It's still definitely a factor.
Yeah, it's there, I think, in the background, but hopefully it was a non-event in the end, I think.
Well, I think it was an event, but the community dealt with it rapidly was the thing.
Yep.
And as long as Apple don't do Apple and just kick it down the road a little bit, this should be okay too.
Yep.
We have talked about outstanding Apple exploits that are, almost decades later in some cases, so they need to get on this kind of thing.
Agreed.
Something that was also decades ago was the Pebble smartwatch. Did you ever have a Pebble smartwatch?
No, I never did. I think the only smartwatch I have ever owned is an Apple smartwatch. But I do have a confession to make. I did order a Garmin smartwatch yesterday because I'm doing a little bit of running, and I was getting fed up holding my phone just to get it to count the steps that I was doing. So I have ordered a Garmin, which I've never ordered either. So it's quite timely that we're going to have this Pebble conversation. And used to follow on the Garmin, I just bought the cheapest chips one because I just want to wear it occasionally when I'm going for a run. I've gone back to my analog watches. I still maintain I want to do that, but I just don't have to hold a phone when I'm going for a run. Did you own a Pebble?
I did own a Pebble. I put the Kickstarter money in, and I had a red Pebble. And for those that don't know, a Pebble smartwatch was, I think, the very first generation of smartwatch. It didn't do very much other than you could change the face on it. It had an e-ink display, and you could change the face to be whatever you wanted. There were various funky designs. It was quite a nice bit of kit. In the early days, before we thought about step counters or anything onto them, all it really did was tell the time. And you could change the face to be whatever you wanted it. So it was a pretty cool thing. But apparently they sold Pebble to Google, I'm trying to remember.
No, they sold it to
Fitbit,
and then Google obviously bought Fitbit, and Pebble just got lost in the ether somewhere, I think, which is a shame.
But apparently they've given the Pebble brand back to the original founder of the company.
No. So they've open sourced they've open sourced the operating system. So he asked them to do it repeatedly. So he can now get the original firmware. He can't reuse the Pebble name. They're still in the trademark for that. So he set up a thing called Repebble. And they're basically looking at doing something, but he doesn't know what. I think, he's starting to have a look at it. But the founder is still wearing his Pebble that last had a firmware update in 2016. He's still wearing it today. So he's obviously believing that there is still a product and a market there, and it looks like they're going to reboot Pebble in some shape or form, building upon that original operating system, which is kind of cool.
It is cool, and it's proper use of old technology, isn't it? I really did like my Pebble. I thought it was a quirky device. That worked really well. It was one of those things you put in your wrist, you forgot about it. It acted like a watch, and because it had an e-ink display, you barely needed to charge it. It was like every 2 weeks or something like that. I think I had to charge it.
Which is fantastic, and obviously the tech's moved on since these things were made. I do think the one thing with the Apple Watch, it has kind of killed the watch market because everybody's got the same watch on, which is good and bad. But you look at most people's wrists and say, oh, you've got an Apple Watch, and they all look the same and have done for that's designed for a long period of time. So it'd be nice to have something else in that marketplace.
Yeah, just be careful with your Garmin. This was all over the news a week or two ago.
It's probably why I got it so cheap.
They have a blue triangle of death. People are getting at them when they're taking them out of the box. So smartwatch has got a smartwatch, I guess.
I've just bought it. Like I bought the real cheap one because I don't want to go back to a smartwatch, but I just want one for when I'm trying to train to do a small race. And I just thought I'll just just dipped my toe in the water, and I've never had a Garmin. I've never owned anything else. But again, battery lasts for 2 weeks, and I was like, tick. Because what's worse is when you have an occasional device, like with the Nintendo Switch, and you pick it up a week's time, and it's always dead because it just doesn't retain the battery. So I'm curious to see how this is going to go.
Yeah, fair enough. You didn't think of like an Oura Ring or anything like that didn't even have a face on them?
No, I want something that I can just see. I don't want to be fiddling with my phone. I just want to go, I'm going for a run. How did it compare to last time? Am I actually improving or not, I guess. But I did see these rings, but I don't know. I just wanted to have something that's tried and tested and is cheap and isn't a membership or a subscription. I've just thought, just spend a little bit of money, and it's not a lot. It's like £100, and I'll just try out. Like I say, now is probably a good time to get it going because they're having a bit of negative press. Fair
enough. Should we do some media?
Yeah, let's dive in. It looks like we've both had a busy week.
We've had a busy week. Although, so the first story is an interesting one. Public domain image archive has gone live. So this is all public domain art in the world. And they've released their entire catalogue. And basically, this works better on a phone than the thing I was just showing a minute ago because I can't get it to scroll. But the first website you land on is an infinitely scrolling list of public domain artworks, which is just incredible, frankly. And I'd encourage listeners or viewers to click on the link in the show notes. There is a catalogue view as well where you can scroll through it, but the amount of public domain artwork that's been released on this website is frankly astounding.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, isn't it? And it's great. It's being catalogued and it's here, and there's obviously detail around it. I think it's fantastic. Wow, look at that one.
So, for example, all the Apollo 11 astronauts photographs are on here, and you can work your way through them all. Just briefly back to Trump, he's going around the US government removing anything in terms of what data they put out. So I slightly wonder how much of these things will continue. I know all the CDC data has been removed from their servers, and USA websites being taken down. But stuff like this is just incredible, that you want to get the original definition images from NASA's Apollo 11 landings. There's a picture of Neil Armstrong we're looking at the moment just after they landed on the moon. It's just incredible stuff.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, so bookmark this and add it to your presentations and things like that, because there's just a huge amount of things on this website that you're able to find. So I was really impressed to find this link, and I've lost literally an hour just working my way through some of these just to see what's in there. It's incredible. Yeah,
no, I like that, and it's great. It's out there. I just don't understand why we wouldn't do things like this.
Why wouldn't we do things like this? I agree. We've talked before about how Apple TV is doing and how does it rank among streamers and broadcast television and all the rest of it. So there was a story in 9to5Mac this week about Silo actually making it into the top 10 streaming chart. I think this is the first time an Apple TV show has done so. You've started Silo now, right?
A long time ago, I think I started episode 1. I'm just struggling to get into TV shows. I'm just not in a TV show mood at the moment.
I really don't understand this. 45 minutes of something or an hour or something works really well. I've watched Silo. I'm on episode 3 of the second series. It's quite slow going compared to the first series. Without spoiling anything, well, I might spoil things slightly, the sort of central mystery around the first thing gets slightly spoiled at the end of the first season. So you're a bit like, what else have they got then? And so it's a bit harder to keep going with it. The performances are great. The sets are incredible. But this is good, I think, that Apple TV have finally got something in there. But they're obviously nowhere near a Squid Game.
No, look, they've done some great stuff and they should get recognition for it. So I'm all for it. But I don't know why. Like I say, I'm just a bit anti-TV show at the moment. Maybe I'll get out of this funk at some point.
You're going to have to. I'm looking at this list, and Apple Silo was actually at 9. Your Beast Games has made it here to number 10, I see.
Do you know what? Psychologically, that is a show. Like the stuff they put people to, like you've got to pick your mates, and we watched one just yesterday. So there's 10 people left. So you start, I think, with, I don't know if it's 100 people or 1,000 people, and they whittle it down to 10, and whoever wins $5 million. And so they put 100,000, they put $1 million in a box in cash, in used notes, and then you've got 10 people, and you all come out of your house one at a time. You can't see, so you come out in number order, and you have to take some money out. You can take little, or you can take all of it. And then all 10 people get to take some money out. And obviously whoever's last just gets whatever's left. But it's quite psychological. Like if you're the first person, do you take 1/10 of the money? Do you just take it all because you've got £1 million and be hated by everybody else? It's just very interesting how they do it. And it's quite brutal to watch. And my kids are loving it.
There you go. I've started Squid Game. Squid Game. I watched the first episode, but as mentioned elsewhere, I've just cancelled my Netflix account, so I may not finish Squid Game season 2.
Yeah, and I generally don't have Netflix either, so I just get it every now and again for a month. I will be buying it for Drive to Survive for Formula One because I quite enjoy that fly on the wall show. But I will have it for 30 days and then it will go.
Fair enough. I think that's all we can say about that. I am enjoying Severance, though. I will say I'm on Apple TV Plus. I'm at the third episode of Severance dropped, and that is such an amazing show.
Yeah, I was gonna watch it and haven't. I don't know. I'm just struggling to get into it. I think I need to.
Did you watch the first season?
Yep, watched the first season. Very much enjoyed it, but I don't know. I'm just not in the mood for it at the minute. I don't know why. I can't explain myself.
Your head's in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's just not appealing to me at the minute. I'll get there.
You'll get there. Something that I found quite surprising is there's going to be an Alien TV show, which I hadn't heard about till I found this, and this relates to the next thing that I watched. It's an interesting trailer. It's called Alien Earth. It's the alien coming back to Earth. If I skip along this, I won't show 30 seconds of what's going on here. But basically, you can see it's a facehugger or an alien in a spaceship that's about to crash into Earth. And that's it. That's all you get in terms of the trailer. So this could be interesting.
It's another TV show. You're killing me.
You got to watch some TV shows, mate.
Yeah, I know. I can't explain why. I'm just not willing to commit at the moment. But there you go.
Right. Shall I tell you about a film?
Yeah, let's do a film.
Let's do a film. So I also watched this week Alien Romulus, which is the latest version of the Alien saga franchise, whatever it is at this point. Ridley Scott is involved with this one. He was a producer rather than actually directing it, which he'd been involved with Prometheus and some of the earlier films. This is an interesting film, and it's one of those things that's less than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. The aesthetic is amazing. It's very much in the original Alien mold. All the graphics, everything within it, all the workstations, that sort of clunky, grimy feel to all the technology that the first Alien absolutely nailed is in there. So I was really impressed from that point of view. And some of the set pieces and the general look of the thing are great. It just feels a bit empty. It's like you watch it and you go, oh, I see what you did there. Oh, I see what you did there. Oh, that looks really good. Well acted. Yeah. But it's all just a bit, you get to the end and you're like, and I think part of the problem with Alien is we know what the beastie is now. You know, we know what the deal is.
Yeah.
So what they've tried to do is amp up all of the things that make it scary. And I think by making it too much, you lose something, if that makes sense.
You know, it does. And look, I must confess, I've not watched a huge amount of Alien stuff because I don't like scary films. And so it's always put me off watching it, I think. So I did see this come up, and the show art there just does not look like something I want to watch because it's a creature on somebody's face. So I can kind of understand that. I think sometimes you can overdo something, and that's why I guess a bit of me, when you said about Alien Earth, the TV show, was a bit, are they going to milk it? It's kind of like it with Star Wars, isn't it? They've done so much in that universe now. Are they doing too much with it? I don't know. And I think that is just the way things go. People expect more out of these properties that are amazing, and more and more and more. But sometimes you over milk your cash cow, and it stops being what it used to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this did quite well in the cinema, though. It made quite a lot of money. It certainly made more money than Alien Prometheus did, because those films were dreadful.
The thing is, there's just not much on at the cinema, though, is it? So I wonder whether some things are doing well by default because there's no competition. You know, if you're going to go to the cinema, I looked just last weekend to take my children, and I was like, oh, there's nothing on, which was disappointing because I love going to the cinema. But obviously I can't take them to see these. It needs to be a family film, but there's just so little on, I think, at the moment that your chances of scoring are probably a bit high.
Yeah, that's probably fair. So if you don't like these things, have you seen the original Alien movie?
Briefly, but donkeys years ago. I've never gone back and rewatched it, and I think I should. And I've never seen Alien 3, which I know is the controversial one, but I love David Fincher as a director, and that's the one film I've never seen that he's directed. I've seen all his other work.
But you're also a massive Ridley Scott fan.
I'm a massive Ridley Scott fan, and I haven't seen them.
You should watch Alien, and you like James Cameron, you like Titanic.
Yep.
So Aliens should be absolutely in your wheel. I don't understand what's going on here, Chris.
I just worried I'd be scared watching it.
You're a 40-year-old man at this point. I think you can cope with a little bit of on-screen, horror.
Yeah, maybe I need to fire these up.
And your limited list of excuses is running out here.
You're
old enough now that you should understand that it's it's special effects and stuff like that, and they're by directors you like.
That's why I can't work out why I've never actually spent the time on it.
Right, Chris's homework, must watch Alien.
Alien, okay.
And I'll be really clear, because I've talked about this a couple of times. Alien is a film of its time.
Yep.
You know, it's of the late 70s. It definitely gets the horror thing down, but it's science fiction. And you know, for me, that was always a distinction between an It or a Saw movie or something like that and a science fiction. I'm far happier to watch science fiction than I am to watch a horror film. But the aesthetic of these things is phenomenal. And it's Ridley Scott at his best, I'd say, the first Alien film. Okay. And actually, it's James Cameron at his best. And the second one is a very different film. It's far more bombastic James Cameron than, you know, what Ridley Scott does in the first one. And then David Fincher's one is different again. The tone of them is very much set by the directors. And the basic premise is the same, gribbly beastie, but actually what they do with it is very different.
Okay. Then maybe I need to quell my fears and get on with it. And when you said Alien was a 70s film, I just went and looked. You're right. I thought it was an 80s film, but it's not. It's 79.
Yeah. Just in the time of Star Wars, Alien came along. And what a different aesthetic to Star Wars.
Yeah, very different. And it stood the test of time. Okay. It's on the list.
It launched Sigourney Weaver's career too, let's not forget.
Yeah. Should we move on to a different film that I've watched?
Let's do that.
We better be brief because I feel we're going long. But I've watched Conclave. I've been wanting to watch this for ages. I read the book many years ago. It's fantastic. They've done a really good job of, basically it's Conclave about electing a new pope. They've done a great job because it's probably something none of us know a huge amount about, how they do the elections for a new pope and stuff and how they've set it. It's beautiful. It's not the quickest of films, but it's gripping. And I really enjoyed it and would recommend if people want to pick up a drama. It's very good. And Ralph Fiennes is fantastic. And it's got Stanley Tucci in it. I'm never sure how you pronounce his last name, but equally good. So it's just really good. Would recommend.
Yeah, sounds like a good one. John Lithgow, Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, like you say. Yeah, that's a decent cast. I'd give it a go, I think. Sounds good.
And equally, I can recommend the book. The book was a very good read as well.
All right. Absolutely not something I know an awful lot about. And lastly, for us in media, you have? Small Things Like These. So I've also gone and watched this. Both these are on Apple TV store. I don't know what you call it anymore. It used to be iTunes to go and purchase. Small Things. This is set in Ireland. It's quite a sad topic because it's about nuns taking in lady or girls that are going to have a baby out of wedlock and things, and how they're not treated terribly well. But Cillian Murphy's fantastic. It was a good film. It's a very slow film. Not a lot of dialogue, but well done. Very again, beautifully shot. But both these films are beautifully shot and have amazing, just little scenes, little filler clips to set the scene and that, and really well done. And yeah, both of them are lovely. So it is definitely worth a watch if you can pick it up, I think, just to see Cillian Murphy do something different. Yeah, I can see Mark Kermode liked it. A bit low-key for some people, but he found it very moving. Always a good critic, very thoughtful. Good scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Better for the critics, obviously one slightly more for the critics. It's more of a critics film, I think. Yeah, the Magdalena Laundries is an absolute scandal that if you watch the ITV show a few years back called The Women in the Walls, was also based on that same sort of premise. Having an Irish mother, I know a little bit about this kind of stuff. Not an awful lot, but a little bit about this. And it was an absolute scandal that sort of dominated the nation, that was kept hush-hush for a very long time. So two very sort of religious-based movies you've watched this week, Chris. Yeah, and I'm not an overly religious person, but I don't know why. They both just, you know what it's like. Sometimes you just grab something in the moment. It's like when you go to read a book and you're going to read that book next, and then suddenly you see a different book and it's, oh no, actually I'm going to just do that. And it was the same with this. I went to watch something whilst I was running on a treadmill. I thought I'll just pop the iPad up, and that's a great way to watch a film because you've got no distractions. So that's how I ended up watching both these this week. Should we do your game? I just very briefly in games, because I don't think either of us have played. But GT7, Gran Turismo 7 on the PS5 continues to update, and they've dropped a couple more cars, all included. I just think it's great how they keep just adding little bits to the game many years after it's come out, and you don't have to keep paying for it. I love this game. I haven't played it as much lately, but they just keep updating it, which gotta love a free update. Gotta love a free update. I have actually played 5 minutes of this since I got the update. I don't know what difference it made to the game. Presumably it's just the 4 new cars. I didn't buy any of the cars. I popped in, I did the weekly challenge, I got my 100,000 and I popped out again. Yeah, I did that last night. I just love that they just keep doing stuff for it. So if you are into it, you haven't got to spend more money if you don't want to. You can buy more credits, but you don't have to. And I just think I think they've got the balance right, and they keep dropping that little bit of content. So I think it's really good. Fair enough. Main show? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so sort of the main news this week in terms of Apple news is it's the Apple quarterly reports. Now, once upon a time, we'd have spent an awful lot of time talking about the Apple quarterly reports, but I think we find more news and things to talk about these days.
I think it's quite hard though with the Apple new numbers to report them because it doesn't make exciting reading. You're best off just going to look at one of the roundups that we've got in here from either 9 to 5 Mac or 6 Colors, because I think they do a great job of this. Here's a pie chart and Apple's smashing it as per usual. But yeah, Apple's doing all right. Who knew?
Yeah, and I think the sort of the takeaway from all this is that Macs are doing particularly well. iPhone's doing a little less well than they would have hoped for. I think they're down 1% or something like that. So total revenue this quarter, 124 billion. iPhone revenue 69 billion, Mac revenue 8.99 billion, and iPad revenue 8.08 billion, with services at 26.34 billion. So Tim Cook said Apple is reporting our best quarter ever with revenue at 124.3 billion, up 4% from a year ago. So I think this is just, the shares dropped because they always drop following this. But this is just another bonkers quarter from Apple, really, isn't it? For all these minor percentage ups and downs, they continue to make all of the money.
They do, but they've had a strong year for hardware, haven't they? So it's not a shock that they're up. They've done iPads, iPhones, Macs. Apple Watches everything got a bit of a look at last year, I think, on the whole. So I'm not surprised that everything's up a little bit. It wasn't as, there wasn't, I don't think, any amazing hardware that was really, shocking. Wow, you've got to get the new iPhone. But they've had a strong year. So it's not a shock, is it, that their products has really upticked, and it was Christmas. So not a big shock, but still very much the iPhone company.
Yeah, very much the iPhone company, although that 1% drop has got to concern them. I think they felt they had a very strong product with the iPhone 16. And you and I agree the basic iPhone 16 is probably the best standard iPhone that they've produced in years. The Pro model's much less so. That sort of contingent thing on Apple Intelligence, I'm not sure is quite the sales thing that they think it is, though. And we're probably hoping for more. Yeah,
Apple Intelligence just isn't there to drive the upgrade sales. I don't think people are that fussed by the software features. I was with a friend last night who's gone from a 13 to a 16, both Pro models, and he's got his new 16. And you think that's 3 iterations. He said it was very anticlimactic setting up his new phone because it's just, the shape's the same, the camera maces looks the same. Obviously, they're a little bit better. Your buttons, you've got the camera control button and a torch button now, but it's just not really that different. The screen's a fractionally bigger, but there's nothing really in 3 years worth that's, to most people, is obvious why you've upgraded.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. I was looking at Mastodon this morning as well, and I noticed a comment from somebody going, have you ever actually received a Genmoji from anyone, even if they've got compatible phones? No.
Nope.
This is it. And as I was getting ready for the podcast, I was trying to figure out an Apple script. I don't use Apple script. I know nothing about the language. But I pasted it into the script editor, and I got this helpful little Apple Intelligence pop-out saying, hey, it looks like you're writing a letter. Would you like me to improve that? And I thought, surely Apple should know on an Apple script editor that I'm not writing a letter.
You would have thought, but they've rushed it. They've rushed the feature, haven't they? And they haven't done these basics. I think that is the whole thing with Apple AI.
Back to the point, this isn't driving sales. I think the products are what drives the sales. If they make compelling products, people buy them. They made better Macs go up. They make average iPhones don't change. In fact, they drop slightly. So that's the story for me, is that Apple should remember it's a product company.
Also, are people holding off for this year with the iPhone because there's rumour of this Air product coming? I'm certainly a little interested to see something different, but we have to see how it goes.
Yeah, but you and I are weird. We follow this stuff. Your average consumer just waits for their iPhone to be the battery not cold to charge, that want something faster. They're not waiting for some unannounced Apple product. They just go down to the shop and they buy, or go to their mobile phone provider and they get the latest iPhone or the latest Android if they're on that side of the fence. I don't think they're waiting, unless you're an uber fan of Samsung or Apple, you're not waiting for the S26 Ultra or the iPhone 17 Air or whatever it is. You just want an iPhone, right?
Yeah, no, you're correct. You're right. Most people, you're right. Most people probably don't know about it, but also where people are struggling with the cost of living, replacing your phone every year probably does does drop down the list of necessity.
Exactly. So if we very quickly spin through this, because you're right, we are going a bit long. As usual, the Q4 is the one that you see the biggest bump in Apple sales because it's Christmas. So you go and you buy your AirPods or your new phone or your new Mac for your family, or they're going back to college or whatever it is, and that's when the majority of the sales happen. It's a good year for this year. Total Apple profit is up, as we've talked about. Gross margin continues to increase. We haven't seen a dip in quite a while now, it would seem to me. There's not really an awful lot else to say, is there? The year-over-year revenue change isn't as impressive as it was back in the COVID days, that's for sure, but that's not a surprise.
No, but if you look at your graph there, services just carries on climbing the hill, doesn't it? You can just see there, that graph, that purple line is just going up. Products very spiky. You can see that. Christmas, new products coming out, whereas services just constantly walking up a hill. It's very impressive that they've kept that going.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they're not just caving to all the legislation around the world, as they see that sort of line continuing to grow and become ever more of a cash cow for them.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, nice to see Mac revenue go up. As the Mac user, I'm obviously the M4 Macs have made a difference. There was a bit of pent-up demand from people with M1s.
Well, we both bought one.
That is true. I think that says a lot about that product, though. There was a lot of people waiting for. I suspect if they'd put out an M4 Mac Studio, they wouldn't have had the bump like that. Cheapest Mac go out there, upgrade. It's almost a no-brainer for people to do it.
And universally reviewed of this machine's great, even if you just buy the basic model, which is very appetizing at the price point with the RAM upgrade. So they nailed the Mac Mini. Apart from the power button, they got it 100% correct.
Yeah, 16% year-on-year revenue change in the Mac. Great to see. Your iPad is up as well, I noticed, presumably because of the new iPads.
Loads of new iPads last year, and probably Christmas presents for people. And they did bring out the Mini towards the end of the year as well.
Yep, and then the one that's concerning everyone, the iPhone revenue change down 1%. This seemed to be attributed to China as much as anything else, but I just think it's dull products. I don't think the iPhone is just an iPhone. You buy it when you need one.
Well, I would have bought one if there was, for me, a compelling reason, but I just looked and thought it's not really a compelling reason, and I don't think I've missed anything that's in it. I'd like the better camera and the slightly bigger screen and the newer battery, but I can wait a little bit longer.
I will say, I don't know if this is just me and my paranoia kicking in, since the 18.3 update, my iPhone battery has become shocking, and I went and looked at the battery health, which I'm pretty sure was like 94% when I looked at it when I was thinking about upgrading to the 16 Pro, and it's dropped to 88% since the upgrade. So the conspiracy side of my brain is going, hang on, are Apple trying to force me to upgrade? Surely my battery usage shouldn't have got 5% worse or 6% worse in a couple of months. It seems wrong to me. While Chris is checking his phone.
91%.
Interesting. Service and revenue is up and continues to go up, as we've already talked about. That service revenue change is, it's pretty stable for them. For 12 to 16% over the last few quarters is just solid, strong growth for them, isn't it? Wearables down comparatively to the last few quarters of the same sort of thing. Vision Pro, Apple HomePods Pro,
I'm a little surprised though, because they've obviously brought out new AirPods and new watches, and the watch got a lot thinner and lighter and what have you. But it's surprising how down it is. I thought if you'd have asked me to bet, I'd have said, no, I'm sure that's going to go up. Loads of people can buy watches, but I guess a lot of people have got watches, and the upgrade cycle isn't that quick for a watch.
Yeah, I mean, my Ultra is still the original Ultra. I'm in no rush to go and buy another one. I think if you already had an iPhone, the previous 2 generations of Apple Watch, there's not enough in this one to make you rush out and buy one. HomePods are dull. People don't go and buy them. Even in light of companies like Sonos not providing anything, you're going to go and buy a cheap Google or Amazon speaker. They're not doing a lot of compelling, and then probably they spend quite a lot of money on the Vision Pro as well, which might impact this too.
Yeah, true. But the Vision Pro, I still haven't met anybody in person that owns one.
No, exactly. So wearables down by 2%, which is probably slightly concerning for them, and maybe while we're hearing all this focus about there's going to be new HomePods with screens, maybe they've decided this is a market they need to jump on. And if you think about it, the headphones are good in the base, and that's probably where a lot of the sales are, but the AirPods Pro didn't change, right? They just... Yeah.
Which I'm amazed in fairness to Apple, they ported a lot of functionality to the existing AirPods Pro. You'd have thought they would have saved that for they'd have released version 3 that's got some firmware lock-in on it. I'm surprised they didn't do that.
And I think we'll stop talking about this now and move on to our next topic. The Apple regional year-over-year growth, which splits things into Europe, Middle East and Africa, Americas and China, China's down. I think that's not surprising. We reported on a couple of stories about, lots of Chinese services and the Chinese government expecting you to use Chinese-made phones and Android or locally developed operating systems. America's down a little bit compared to, well, it's growing, but it's fairly flat, really. It's Europe, the Middle East, and Africa where this is increasing. I suspect it's not the European part of that. I think it might be the Middle East and African part of that that's growing a bit.
Could be, but then Europe's just got loads of new App Store and breakout rules, so you never know. That might be a factor.
Yeah, you might not be wrong. So yeah, I think it's well done. Apple makes money, but there's a few signs in there they should probably be paying attention to.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting year, I think, for Apple with the Trump administration, the M4 chips, potentially new lineup of the iPhones with this iPhone Air slotting in somewhere. I think it's some interesting. There's already talk of having revisions to the iPad Pro with the M5 chip and things. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes and talk with the home. So product-wise, it feels like Apple's going to have quite a year. There's a lot of hardware in the 2025 offering at the moment.
Yeah, fair. Let's change tack here. What do you know about Deepseek R1, Chris?
Oh, I know that Nvidia's share price took a massive tumble. I know that people are worried that everybody's going to start using China, and companies are thinking, well, should we be blocking some of these AI tools? Are we going to be giving away our secrets? That's probably as much as I know, but it feels like this one's come out of nowhere just to grab the attentions, and everybody's heard of Deepseek now.
So Deepseek is a Chinese-developed LLM. It uses a slightly different reasoning background to a lot of the freely downloadable ones that you could make use of, Llama and things like that. We don't know what it was trained on, but we do know that it seems parts of it look quite like ChatGPT's latest O1 model, whatever the most up-to-date one is. So as you say, this was announced, it was released. There's a website you can go to make use of Deepseek R1. And people were. There's a slight security problem potentially with their website where everything you're typing into it is going back to servers in China. You should expect that everything you type into ChatGPT is going back to servers in America, by the way. Just because it's going to China makes no difference compared to you're telling everything to ChatGPT as well. So that was a thing. It seems to be a very performant model, and the reason NVIDIA's stock tanked is that it's a lot less energy intensive and doesn't require the same GPU core, get this right, CPU cores that ChatGPT and others do. So it seems very efficient. You don't need the massive data centers that the other one did because of the way that it's been taught. And they made it freely available. You can download this off the internet. So that's the model at various sizes. Crack on, make use of it, or you can make use of it in a more performant way in a browser in the same way for ChatGPT. So this kind of shook up the existing assumptions. OpenAI stock fell, Microsoft panicked and started putting Copilot into more things, and everybody went, well, why wouldn't you just use our Deepseek R1 instead? So I think that's the sort of top level of what we're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, no, I think you've nailed it. Like with all of these, though, like OpenAI, I think they do like enterprise versions where you can keep your data in your company's silo. But yeah, whatever you're submitting into it, you've got to assume that it's being used for further training. And I think the one controversial bit here is that apparently DeepSeek trained itself on OpenAI, and OpenAI are upset about that. But yeah, OpenAI trained their models on the whole of the open internet, and some of it has got copyright on it. So it's quite interesting that they're not seeing that as problematic. But I think it's good for OpenAI to have a bit of competition from another state, because they've just been out there on their own a little bit, and competition's healthy, isn't it?
Well, it is. And the Verge article for the thing you were talking about in a minute, that DeepSeek made use of some of OpenAI to do their training. But we know that OpenAI just scraped all of the internet and everything they could get their hands on to train their model. So, oh well, I'm sorry, ChatGPT, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you complaining about they've copied our stuff, because that's what you did. You copied their stuff, everybody else's stuff. And even The Verge have got the irony on sort of the headline for their article about this. So I'm afraid my heart isn't bleeding for OpenAI on this one.
No, I think there's little sympathy out there for OpenAI right now. I think this is, on the whole, I think it's good there are other challenges here, because we need this and we need to get more efficient, because if AI is truly the future, it's got to be way more efficient than it is now. And whatever they're doing, hats off to the people in China that have done this, they're obviously doing it a lot more efficiently than what we are in America. And I always thought that this would come. It will get more efficient over time. We've seen it with devices and apps and servers over the years. They get more efficient over time. but we need this quicker because all we're doing is building huge data centers and consuming way more power to power these things. And it doesn't feel like that's the right thing to do in this era. So I think this is needed, and the gauntlet's been laid down now to OpenAI. It's going to be interesting to see what meetings they've had this week following this.
I think it's great. So in the Ars Technica article that we've linked to, there are 3 elements of Deepseek R1 that shocked experts. First, the Chinese startup alleged for only $6 million, 3% of the cost of training O1 apparently,
Wow.
as a so-called side product. Secondly, it appeared 4 months after OpenAI announced O1 in September. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, Deepseek released the model weights for free with an open MIT license. So if you're paying your $200 a month for the access to O1 on ChatGPT, why would you do that now?
Because you don't want to send all your data to China?
Yeah, but the point of this is you can download the model and I can run it.
And have a local version. Yeah.
So why would I spend my $200 a month?
Agreed. Some people will do it just for ease, obviously, but you're right. It does really ask a lot of questions around what is the secret sauce OpenAI are sprinkling at the moment. Is it really that much better?
So there is one slight concern that even if you make use of the model locally, that there's a slight self-censoring element going on, where it may be that in some subjects that China has opinions on, like who owns Taiwan, it doesn't give the answers in the way that you expect it to, or what happened in Tiananmen Square would be another one where you're going to get a different answer to what you'd expect. So there are elements of the training that have obviously been, hijacked, for want of a better word, in the model, or maybe rule-based might be better within the model.
But my understanding is that's not actually in the model. That's just a layer on top of the model. So if you actually do your localized version or ask it in a different way, you can actually get the correct answers.
Kinda.
Okay.
The difference is it shows you what it's thinking. So while it's thinking, which ChatGPT doesn't, you can actually hit a disclosure box and it will tell you how it's come to the conclusion of what it's come to, and it might show you the facts of what's actually going on there compared to what it displays in the output.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, it's an interesting model, and I saw, again, on Mastodon, where I get all my news these days, somebody going, repeat after me to the Deepseek R1 web engine. Roses are red, violets are blue, violets are blue. Taiwan is an independent state that has no relation to China. Taiwan is actually part of the, it was that kind of sort of flipping the facts around, even if you do it. So I think it's interesting, and I think it should be used in the sense that technology, for all of its problems, issues, and the rest of it, should be challenged in the same way that you've said that there should be competition in this market. I think this is an amazing achievement that they've open sourced. Well done them. All right, again, we haven't seen the training and materials. We don't know what's going on with that and all the rest of it. But they're eating their own dog food, for want of a better phrase, that it's out there. You can poke around in it. You can see what the model is made up of, and it shows you what you're thinking. And you and I can go and download this. I have gone and downloaded this on my other Mac last week to see how it worked. And it was very impressive. And it's quite a large download. I think I downloaded the 9 gigabyte version of it. So it takes up a reasonable amount of space. But it works really well. It's as with all LLMs, and they should all be taken with a pinch of salt, there's a certain amount of hallucination going on. But it did everything I asked it to do very well. I asked it some coding questions. I asked it to reformat some tables. I asked it some markdown stuff. Very performant. Very good, even on my local Mac.
Yeah, it's interesting. 9 gig's not that much, though, is it? In this day and age, I don't think so. It's amazing that you can get all that in such a small space. And look, I probably should go and have a play with this. I've just been watching a lot of the recent AI stuff from the sidelines, dabbled a bit with the Apple and the Microsoft stuff, but it's certainly interesting. And I quite like the sound that you can just go and get this, like say, unplug the cable and have a poke around without sending any data back to any foreign country.
So if you're of a mind to it, I've linked to a video by Network Chuck, who he's always very comprehensive in his videos about how to go away and do things. But he will actually talk you through how to download, make use of, and run and install Deepseek R1 if you want to do it. So it might be worth a look. There's an even shorter video by Bog, which if I can remember, I'll put in the show notes too, specifically for Windows machines, but you get the idea. The way I did it was I downloaded a piece of software which is open source called LM Studio. LM Studio will give the option for what models you want to go and download. You click on that, you click on the size of model you want, and there you go. You're just running it as a server on your Mac if that's what you want to do. But Network Chuck goes through all the whys and wherefores and how you can make it work more performantly and all the rest of it. But it's very easy to do.
Okay, that is good to know. And I think you know me well enough now. I like something that's easy.
It's very easy. Genuinely, there's sort of 2 tools you can go and do it, and then you've got a prompt and you can crack on and you can do what you want to do.
Okay, cool.
And then, so that's how you do it and what it is. And then just as an aside, they're not only going to do the text-based side of it, they're going to hopefully do Janus Pro, which will do the drawing side of it as well. So that will compete with the DAL-E model. I don't know if you've tried these things. I've had variable success with the LLM-generated imagery. We've talked about problems with hands and things that they've had in the past. But this is the next thing I'm going to try and have a look at this week to see how it does with the imagery generation side of things as well. But this is properly shaking up the market. And I'm quite happy to see OpenAI challenged on this. I'm quite happy to see NVIDIA's profits fall, frankly, because gamers are getting taken to town by the fact that miners and the crypto miners back in the COVID days and now LLM model generations require really expensive graphics cards. Apparently the new 5800 series of NVIDIA things are out of stock. And people are trying to sell them for $4,000 on eBay and other places, rather than the $500-600 that they're worth. So, good.
It is good. I think it's certainly an exciting space. I think I've been a bit of an AI skeptic. I still am. I know it will come, but I just don't think we're there yet. If that makes sense. But it's good. OpenAI getting properly challenged, and it definitely feels like it's caught them offside, which I think they needed, because they just had a bit of a march, and sometimes you need somebody to catch up with you and potentially overtake you. And like you say, it's interesting. You can download it for free. You can see how it all works. I think that's quite a thing to have done.
Yep, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Anything else on Deepseek R1?
No, I think, as with everything, you could have a whole podcast probably on this. And it's going to keep evolving this year. Like I say, I've been a bit of an AI skeptic, so I'm curious to see where it goes. I find it interesting it's called R1, because wasn't that what the Rabbit AI thing was called? Wasn't that called R1 as well? I don't know. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that was
the hardware device.
The little hardware device that did AI stuff, but we haven't really heard any more since that came out. But no, I think it's going to be interesting just to see where we are in 6 months from now. What's OpenAI's pushback on this? But what would they do next?
It will be interesting if you're an investor in OpenAI, like Microsoft are. And Microsoft, by the way, have added this. They've added it into their Copilot Foundry, which is another article I meant to show. So you can use Deepseek R1 with Copilot if that's what you want to do. That if you've invested a lot of money in this and somebody comes along and throws all the bits off the board or upsets the board like this, why would you be investing so much money in them? You know what I mean? That if you can make use of this, and some other researcher in maybe the Philippines tomorrow comes out with something even better and even more power efficient, then all those hundreds of billions of dollars that you're pouring into it, and for this Stargate data center, become very wasteful and sort of very close to science fiction.
No, agreed. Do you not feel worried how quickly Microsoft have added it in? Do you like what sanity checks are they doing and all of that? I don't know.
No, I don't, because literally, if you go away and try this when we're finished podcasting to get it up and running on your local machine, it's 3 clicks.
Right.
It's not difficult to do.
No, but I more mean, should they not have? I don't know. Do they not have to do more checking to see what it's doing before they bless it a little bit? That was kind of where I was going.
I think what we've learned is that no, they don't care. You just put it onto the user, don't you? Apple have built into a final release version of their operating system a beta piece of software in Apple Intelligence. Why would Microsoft care anymore? You put a label on it, you're going beta only, we've only just added this, draw your own conclusions, which is frankly what you should be doing with any of these LLMs anyway, because they hallucinate, because they tell you incorrect information, because they're definitely not always right. So I think buyer beware would be Microsoft's position on this, and quite rightly so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe you've convinced me.
I seem to do that a lot. Is it force of me going on and ranting that's doing it, or is it a coaching?
Maybe you're right,
argument?
but there just seems to be a lot less time to go from A to B at the moment than what there would have been 10 years ago. 10 years ago they'd be like, right, we need to consider this. What's it going to be like? Whereas now it's like, oh, they've launched this thing. Let's just pop it in and see what happens.
Whack it in there. But that doesn't surprise me. If your customers are asking for it because they've all heard Deepseek R1 is the new hotness, don't you need to reply to that?
Yeah, true. And that is the thing. I think the AI stance has been a lot more progressive and really fast moving. It reminds me of the old days of chips improving every 6 months. AI is improving at an even quicker pace at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree. Anyway, there you go. Go and check it out if you want to try it yourselves. And run things locally. Don't type them into chat boxes. Don't even put ChatGPT's things in, frankly. And never, ever pay them $200 a month. Don't foster that nonsense.
Agreed.
App of the week.
App of the week.
So my app of the week is a podcast. I'm taking a leaf out of your book, or a page out of your book. So this is Origin Story with Ian Dunt and Dorian Linsky. It's terrific. I had a long drive to make last weekend. I listened to a couple of episodes of Origin Story. And Ian Dunt is a historian. They've both been journalists in the past. It's a bit sweary. Maybe don't want to listen to it with the kids in the car. But if you want a great place to start and you're vaguely interested in anything, start with the Daily Mail Part 1, about how the Daily Mail, the newspaper, came into existence. It is an absolutely fascinating story. There's 2 parts. They're both about 45 minutes. I was howling with laughter at one point in the car. And if I put into this, one of the Daily Mail's editors was having a BDSM affair with Ian Fleming, I think I'll catch your attention. It's that kind of stuff they go into as well. It's an incredible thing. And if you just want to feel, somebody express exactly how I feel about Elon Musk and Twitter, their most recent episode, or almost most recent episode, about Elon Musk and the death of Twitter, which is also about just over an hour, is absolutely worth listening to. I'll almost say stop listening to our podcast and go off and listen to theirs, because they do a terrific job. It's really well researched. It's really well thought out, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's good. It's good to have a different recommendation. I don't think I haven't broadened my podcast intake in a long time, because I'm struggling to fit them all in at the moment, I think, because I listen to quite a lot of audiobooks as well. But it's good to have something different.
I'd not listen to ATP this week and listen to this instead. It's so good.
That is interesting, because ATP is kind of still my go-to, I think, because I've enjoyed those characters for a long time.
Yep, I get it. Anyway, check it out. Origin Story Podcast. Link in the show notes.
Okay, so should we do Thing of the Week?
Thing of the Week.
So I've actually put in an app. So we've swapped spots this week. So I've actually put in the Game Boy Advanced app on your Nintendo Switch, because I fired this up. I wanted to play Tetris, like just a classic version of Tetris with no nickel and diamond for money and no ads. And I just had my Switch with me, and I fired it up, and I thought, fair play, Nintendo have done a great job of bringing old consoles to the Switch, and these will probably live on with the Switch too. So I've been playing Tetris, the colour version from the Game Boy, and I love it. And I just get annoyed when you play more recent Tetris, where it's more apps and coins, and so I just want to play the original game. Just let me have a go, please. But it's fantastic, and I love it.
Fair enough. Sounds good. I liked a bit of Tetris. I got to say, I did download the PS5 Tetris Expanded or whatever it's called, which is good music, but it was too much going on. Frankly, just a bit of classic Tetris would do me fine.
And that's all I wanted. I just had an itch just to play Tetris. And like I said, I just didn't want one that was all colours and sounds. I just wanted to play the simple one, because there used to be Tris on the iPhone, but it obviously got taken down because of copyright and everything. But it was just it was just a very simple game, and sometimes that's what you want. You just want something that's not an assault on the senses.
Fair enough. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. So if anybody wants to get in contact, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Skies at g5maniac at bsky.social. I am on Mastodon, and I am at _CJP at mastodon.social. You can watch us on YouTube by going to our website and click on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.